And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, March 1st. Yuck, we're already 2 months done this year. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by No House Advantage. 6-game slate today. We actually have a pretty normal week, nothing more than 9. Everything is just sort of balanced. We don't have any random 2-gamers. So another good one today. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, I know it didn't quite go your way yesterday, but shouts to 1-800-EDDIE, friend of the program, the man behind the scenes that you guys never, ever, ever get to see, but continually exceptional at DFS. Picked up the win yesterday. Adam, I'm glad Monday's over.
Yeah, glad Monday's over. Didn't go well for me. A lot of guys that I played did well. It was just, kind of needed like a perfect lineup yesterday. I didn't have Scotty Barnes, so that hurt. But yeah, ready to go into today.
Yeah, I all of the guys that I played a lot of, all of my major stands were all mostly putrid outside of Goodwin and Barnes. And then the guys that I needed, like the guys that worked out really well for me were not the ultra major stands. So like the guy, I was heavy on DeJounte Murray. That was fine. He ended up not being SGA or Morant. Butler played like 28 minutes or whatever, was okay to start. Siakam somehow ended up being not good. Cole Anthony was dreadful. Jared Allen wasn't that great. Desmond Bain, not good. Oh, it was bad across the board. Drummond played 16 minutes. They played 13 guys in that one because they got beat by 40.
I ended up with more Aldridge than Drummond on DraftKings. So that was one of those where like I'm watching my teams and I'm like, oh, this is going well, at 1% owned. And then it's just like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, didn't matter at all. Just a weird day altogether. Anyway, tons to talk about here. 6-gamer. I barely had to make changes today. When I woke up, did the process show. There's not like all that much news floating about, 1 or 2 spots only. These teams have been running like pretty steady rotations. And I was just kind of like, well, I guess whatever I have in here still works. So we'll see where you land on it. Leon Moody says, betting Josh is glad he had Drummond heavy ahead of Adams. I would have liked to not have Adams or Drummond. Those weren't the answers for me yesterday. That much I could tell you. And it's not like I was heavy. I was just, 2.5 times the field. What did Adams end up doing?
I'm not sure.
41 on FanDuel in 31 minutes. He played well, unnecessary. So that's fine for me. I can handle it.
Hero being pretty mediocre didn't help either.
I was really hoping for a bigger day out of Terry Rozier. That was the spot that I felt like I was making a really, really good play. And turns out Drew Holiday dropped 40 fantasy points in 25 minutes. All right, let's dive into it. As I said, hit that like button if you can. Detroit Pistons, 4-point dogs in Washington. So if you want to know how bad 2 teams are, the Pistons are only 4-point dogs at Washington, 218 total. The Pistons are the same team that they normally are. Everybody is basically in outside of Hamidou Diallo. I'm not sure that's going to matter all that much. We've got Sadiq Bey, Cade Cunningham, and Jeremy Grant, all about 15% owned on DraftKings. All 3 of those guys are 10% owned on DK, along with Isaiah Stewart. And when I look at this team, I see nothing that I say, I really need to have that.
Yeah, I agree with you. One thing to keep an eye on is, that we do also have Jackson and Bagley questionable. If they're out, that potentially opens some stuff up.
Sure.
He did get 24 minutes last game from Kelly Olynyk with Bagley out. That was something I wasn't sure was going to happen, but it's certainly good to see that it did. His price tag also jumped $1,200 on DraftKings as a result. So yeah, it's a team where if we assume those guys are in, there's just not much that stands out. Like if you get to some Cunningham, Bay, Grant, Stewart, all those guys are fine. But there's nothing that looks, particularly appealing to me.
Okay.
Bagley at 3,900 would be fine if he's into.
Yeah, this is just like a really bland game. Do you play like a $3,700 Corey Joseph today on FanDuel and hope that it's the day where he gets 30 minutes and Killian Hayes gets 18? I don't know. Like it's just garbage. It's just a garbage team.
I do think Isaiah Stewart's kind of interesting at 5K. We'd typically been seeing him play around 30 minutes recently. Had a little bit of foul trouble last game, but if he gets 30 minutes here, it's a pretty good spot.
No issue with it. I'd say that he's probably like my fourth favorite option on Detroit. I think that makes sense behind Bay, Cunningham, and Grant. I mean, Grant's still 5,900 on FanDuel. Clearly I like that, but I think 15% ownership is also about what it should be.
He's just not getting a lot of minutes either, which is frustrating. Like I thought maybe last game he'd play more with Bagley being out. I thought maybe like he'd pick up a few more minutes. They had said that like Grant and Bay would potentially play a little bit more, but then he played like 28 minutes in regulation. It's just hard for me to think he's getting more than 30 minutes in any given game.
Anything else for the Pistons?
Nope.
We slide it over.
Somebody said who gets the bump with Diallo out? Probably nobody.
Yeah, Magruder.
Yeah, I mean like Magruder, Livers plays.
Yeah, it's meaningless.
It's not necessarily meaningless, but my guess is that it will be.
If those other guys, if the questionable guys are in, it's meaningless.
I mean,
because I don't know how I could possibly give those minutes to any individual one guy and like have it matter.
Yeah. Okay, so that if Frank Jackson and Bagley are in, yeah, because like Jackson hadn't been in the rotation. Right. If like Bagley were in and Jackson were out, you could potentially get it where like Killian Hayes plays a little bit alongside Joseph or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the better or the more likely scenario is that Detroit just adds another, plays Livers, plays Magruder more.
Yeah. I don't think we'd ever be able to just grab one guy and be like, oh, he just went from not playable to good.
Right.
None of that exists.
Right. And keep in mind, like 2 games ago when everybody except Jackson were in, Diallo played 10 minutes.
Yeah. Not exactly getting out there for everything. God, I hate Detroit. All right. To your Wizards, big time ownership coming in here. Each site is very different. Kyle Kuzma's 8,700 on FanDuel. He's 24% owned. He should be. KCP is 27% owned on FanDuel at 4,400. That feels a little high. No one else is pulling all that much ownership on FanDuel. DraftKings, however, we've got a $3,600 Daniel Gafford pulling 34% of the ownership. KCP is heavily owned. Kuzma, Kispert, Avdia, Neto, Ish Smith, Rui Hachimura, all 10 to 15% owned. Let's start with Gafford right now. How do you feel about that chalk?
As long as he's starting, I don't really know how to get away from it.
It's a no-brainer, right? Like it's the easiest thing you could slot in today, probably.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, $3,600 center, good matchup, good point per minute guy, most likely playing like 22 to 24 minutes if he starts. It's really difficult to get away from, especially with 2 center spots.
What if he doesn't start?
Then he's probably playing like 16 to 18 minutes.
Still okay.
Yeah, like the issue is that if he doesn't start, you probably, obviously his ownership goes down a ton, but it probably still just like settles in at a point where it's a little bit higher than you would like. Like if we weren't expecting him to start and it was just like, oh, Daniel Gafford's going to be 2% owned, it would be like, okay, well, I'll take a flyer there off the bench. The issue is that like, even though it's going to obviously crater, it's going to be like, let's say it comes down to 5% owned or 6% owned. Like that's still not really a great spot to be in, I don't think.
Who is the next best play on the Wizards today?
Kuzma.
Yeah, I agree. Ownership says it's KCP.
I mean, I think it's one of those where like it depends what you're saying by best.
Yeah.
KCP obviously is going to be easier to fit into lineups because he's 4,400 and there's just going to be less alternatives in that price range. But sure. I mean, Kuzma, opportunity wise, has been fantastic. He's running the point for, stretches of the game. He's got a 20+% assist percentage without Beal and Dinwiddie, rebounding percentages in the mid-teens, nearly a 30% usage rate. And I mean, for a couple of months now, he is making shots too. He's playing really, really well. I still really like Kuzma.
Yep. Happy to get there. Talk to me about the rest of this team because basically every single person is getting 10 to 15% ownership.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a case where they're all cheap. I think you do want to pay attention to groups like Gafford and Bryant. Like if you were playing Bryant for some reason, you wouldn't want them together. I don't think you want Neto and, well, I know you don't want Neto and Smith together. Kispert, Avdia, I probably only want one. You could also, though, just say like max 2 of, Avdia, Rui, KCP, Kispert, something like that. Like you assume the closing lineup is going to be Gafford or Bryant. Kuzma, point guard. So like it leaves 2 spots for the other guys.
Yeah. It's a tricky team to peg down today. I think groups are very important for Washington. And I think you kind of have to cast a wide net just because pricing has unlocked a lot of these guys.
2 full months now. So I know you and I talked about it a little bit ago on a show, but since January 1st now, Kuzma, 844 minutes played, 58.4% true shooting on 27% usage.
Well, wait, what was the true shooting?
58.4.
That's not bad. Yeah, he in Darko, which is another plus minus type like Raptor or EPM. He about 10 games ago, that was sort of Kuzma's peak. He's slight trend back down again, but this has sort of been the best he's been, basically right around that trade deadline. So anxious to see what he ends up doing moving forward.
For comparison, overall this season, Beal on 29.9% usage, 53.9% true shooting.
He had a terrible year.
Oh, he was awful, yeah.
Yeah, it's so bad.
It would just be pretty cool if Kuzma actually becomes a star. Relative, like not best.
Let's also keep in mind that he's a -1.5 guy in Darko. He's bad.
Yeah, not best player on a winning team type star, just like actual good player.
He should settle for a guy that can be in the rotation of a team that makes the playoffs. That would be a decent start for him. I don't know what to do with this Wizards team. There's just too much exposure that needs to come into them on DraftKings. Do you think they're over-owned in the aggregate?
Probably.
Yeah. Like, I know the pricing's different. 141% total ownership on DraftKings, 79% on FanDuel, because the pricing is pretty rough, but just feels like a lot of Wizards.
Yeah, but like at the same time, I can make a pretty strong case for all of them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Who's the worst play of that group? Who's getting like ownership and you're just like, that's not going to be the guy that I'm on today? $4,200 ish, maybe.
Yeah, I've liked going to him quite a bit though, because he's actually been more productive with Washington than he was with Charlotte, and I expected that. So and he was in his previous stint with Washington as well. So he's someone where even if he gets 22 minutes, I think he's a pretty good value. And the games where he closes, he's going to be really good. I think probably Avdia.
I'm going to kill my wife. Seriously, I really am. I'm saying that on screen right now. This is the record. Just come get me when it's done. We have carpet cleaners coming to clean a couple rugs and our couches today. I've known this, that he was supposed to be here at 10:15. She took our boxer into her workspace downtown. I have the pug here. Said nothing to me at all. Knows that I do a show from 10 to 11 like clockwork. Here's the text message. If you can grab the pug and bring him with you, guy's going to be there shortly and we'll have all the hoses and need to bring and have the door open. It's like, you couldn't tip me off to me having to do that prior to the time that I know that I'm going to be sitting here. So I'm going to throw you the next team and then I have to go downstairs and drag my dog up here. He's going to be ornery as shit for the entire time. Dude's the worst. So yeah, it's a great time. Thanks.
I thought you were just having a very strong reaction to me not really liking Denny Avdia at 4,900.
No, it's fine. It's just that text popped up and we've known about this for days. I didn't know that I needed to make sure the dog's not downstairs because we leave the doors open so the hoses can come in. Oh God. Anything else for the Wizards?
No, I think that's it.
All right, good. Oh, you know what's even better? I closed my run sheet. I closed everything. I'm on shambles right now. Oh my God. John Campbell says, I thought she kicks your ass at Wordle. She does. Schedule for the rest of the day. PGA strategy show coming up at 1:00. We've got the NHL strategy show at 2. Speaking of PGA strategy show, Ben and I did our betting video earlier today. Keep your eyes peeled for that. NHL strategy show at 2. And no house advantage NBA show at 3:30. I'm shook right now. Locks before lock coming up at 4:30. NBA Deeper Dive coming in at 5. Adam will be back for that one. NBA Live Before Lock coming in at 6. We've got NBA player rankings, NHL player rankings, and PGA top golfers all free for today. Now, we move it over to the Atlanta Hawks. 6.5-point dogs in Boston, 223 total. Looking like we're not going to have John Collins once again. He is doubtful. No Lou Will for this one. This is kind of just commonplace. Trey Young looks pretty good across both sites. A little bit better on FanDuel at 9,500. DeAndre Hunter's pulling some ownership. Gallo pretty heavily owned at 4,900, but he's been playing 30 minutes a game. I like Kevin Huerter a little bit here with no Lou Will. I think he has the opportunity to pick up an extra minute or two, 4,600 on DK. Talk to me about Atlanta while I go and grab my dog and his bed.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much status quo from what we've been getting. A little bit, or a bit. More difficult matchup against Boston than Atlanta's had recently, but still kind of just the same stuff we talked about with, before with John Collins out. Capella only played about 18 minutes last game. That's a game where he lost a few minutes in the first half because of foul trouble, lost like 3.5 minutes. Then the game was a blowout win over Toronto. So I'm not holding those 18 minutes against him. I still expect him to get to around 30 minutes here. 6,100 on DraftKings is a pretty solid price point. Obviously, we've already talked about Gafford, so you kind of have one center position taken, but Capella, I think, still looks pretty good. Trey Young's usage rate goes up. Obviously, a difficult matchup against Boston. Plenty of good defenders on that team, but $10,000 likely to play 36 minutes or so if this game's competitive. He gets a bump in usage without Collins. Still looks like a pretty decent option. And then I think it's just kind of rotating through the wings with Bogdanovich, Gallo, Hunter, Huerter. You're typically going to get 2 of them playing a lot of minutes and 2 of them playing less. It's heavily dependent on how they're playing, but at their respective price tags, particularly Gallo, Hunter, and Huerter, they're all sub 5K on DraftKings. So if any of them get to 32, 33 minutes, they are going to project as decent options.
Dingo thinks everything you just said was stupid. All right. Hey, buddy, you hang out here. Don't be annoying. Oh, he already slipped and fell, turning around from the side of my desk. That's fantastic. All right.
Old?
He's 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The back legs just don't work like they used to. He'll spin out if he tries to take a turn too fast. It's like he's basically got like bald tires. Josh, I see the resemblance. Kinda. I really like Huerter here, but I think I like Huerter too much all the time. I feel like he could just fall into 34 to 36 minutes today.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of them kind of can.
Yeah.
It just depends on how the game's going, who's playing well. I agree with you. Like, the minutes can be there. The issue is he's like a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy as a starter with Trey Young, and then you have the Boston matchup as well. But yeah, I mean, shooting guard, small forward eligibility looks fine to me.
We worried about Capella's minutes?
Oh, you were getting the dog. So hang on, one thing to point out with Huerter, so like KCP is getting 16% ownership. Huerter's getting 6. I think KCP is the better play. I don't think it should be like 2 to 1 or 2.5 to 1.
I actually think Huerter's the better play, honestly.
What'd you say?
I actually would prefer Huerter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. The matchup is better for KCP, obviously.
The shooting guard small forward, I think, is very valuable.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'm not concerned about Capella's minutes. He lost, I had said this while you were gone, but he lost 3.5 minutes in the first half to foul trouble last game, and then just kind of never came. He played his first stint to open the second half, never came back. It was a blowout win for Atlanta. Obviously, some of the starters did come back, so I'm not 100% sure that's the reason he didn't come back, but it seems pretty likely to me. That was the first game, since Collins has been out where he wasn't getting substantial runs. So for now, at least, I'm just assuming that you get back to, 28 to 30 minutes.
Okay. That's what I was curious. I have him in for 28. I had normally had him in for 30, but just wanted to get your thoughts on those minutes. Anything else for
I'd have
Atlanta?
been more concerned if somebody other than Okongwu had been like playing his minutes. Like if they had changed their rotation and been like, oh, we're going to play Gallo at the 5. That would have been concerning to me, but we still basically just got a split between Capella and Okongwu. So I'm viewing it the same way where, yeah, there's going to be random games where for one reason or another, Okongwu cuts into his minutes, but on average, it's going to be Capella.
Okay. Then we head to Boston, where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just look exceptional on FanDuel today. 8,900 for Tatum on FanDuel. He's 9,800 on DraftKings. 31% owned here on FanDuel. Brown just 8K, projected for 24% ownership. Those are clearly the two main pieces here, but we're seeing Al Horford pull a little bit of ownership on DraftKings. We're seeing Marcus Smart get a little bit. Robert Williams on FanDuel get a little bit. They appear to not have Daniel Tice in the rotation. Horford's minutes have been up as of late. I'm curious what you're reading into that, but what stands out most to you from Boston?
Yeah, Horford's minutes were up and then rested last game, but obviously shouldn't impact here. I kind of just like the whole team. Like they all look pretty much the same to me relative to price, but I just like all of them. Obviously getting to Tatum and Brown is pretty appealing. We talk about them a lot where from a median projection standpoint, they kind of just look decent at their salaries, but in any given game, one of them is pretty likely to step up and have a big game. So I like both of them. I like Robert Williams. He's someone that I've talked about a lot recently where, his playing time's been up. He never gets that much ownership because of being center only on DraftKings. Right now, we have him at 6%, but there's so much volatility with him because of the defensive stat upside that I like him in tournaments. Smart and Horford kind of just there.
Yeah. Are you surprised to see Derek White's minutes the past 3 games?
Yeah, I was actually just about to say that.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I noticed. I did not expect that.
Yeah, when he first got
want to
there,
play Peyton Pritchard more.
When he first got there, he kind of was just stepping into like 28 to 30 minutes, and I fully expected that to be his normal role.
I thought that it should be. Like I'm a fan, and I think he fits this team really well. I was a little surprised to see it happen. Any chance? Like, do you see that bouncing back? And I'm guessing the answer is no. I mean, obviously,
the answer is yes, in that I don't think he averages like 22 minutes a game or 20 minutes a game going forward. I can't reasonably say, oh yeah, he's playing 28 minutes tonight.
Anything else for Boston?
No.
Then we go to the Brooklyn Nets, 8.5-point dogs in Toronto, 219 total. Kyrie out for this one because it's the same situation in Toronto as it is in Brooklyn. So he can't play in this particular road game, which means we're getting the same team that we got yesterday for Brooklyn, which means who the hell knows what's about to happen. We're not going to have Steve Nash in this one. I assume he is in the health and safety protocol. So we're getting Jacques Vaughn. What are you doing with the Brooklyn Nets?
I have no idea. I hate this.
I don't even know where to lead I don't have a question. James Johnson's the most owned guy at 4,300, and I guess that makes sense.
And then they're coming off of this massive blowout, so it's not even like you can read into what they did yesterday.
Right.
Johnson, when he starts, has averaged about 28 minutes per game this year. I assume he's playing around 28 minutes if this game's competitive. Yeah, like Bruce Brown probably plays north of 30 if this game's competitive. His price tag has gone up. Curry is the guy that I guess I feel the most confident in just because, he takes on a bigger playmaking role without Kyrie. Usage rates around 21 to 22% since he joined the team. Patty Mills is a dumpster fire of bad shooting at low usage and doing nothing else. The center position is probably the most interesting to me because you have Drummond's price went up to 6,900. If he plays, 18 minutes, obviously you're not going to want to be there. But if he's playing well and gets to say 24, he'll look pretty good. Similarly, though, if Aldridge were to get to 24 minutes, he's going to look good at 4,500. So I think it's a situation where neither one is projected for much ownership right now. Aldridge at 6%, Drummond at 2%. I understand why, but I also think that there's a pretty good chance one of them ends up being good.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. What do you actually do with them? I have Drummond as the best option. I split them 24-24. I don't really know how I feel about that as of right now, but
I normally go 24-22.
Okay.
Or 23-21, I think is what they've averaged since Drummond's been there.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know. This is just a true disaster of a team. And I think Jacques Vaughn being the coach and not Steve Nash actually matters for rotations during the game.
Yeah, I'm just not sure exactly how it matters.
Right. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't think it's actionable, but like he's clearly going to make subs on the fly during a game that are going to be different than Steve Nash.
Right.
I wish I even had a follow-up. I don't know how to talk about this team. Luckily, I think today we probably won't get all the Goran Dragic questions that we got yesterday that were totally meaningless from the moment we started the day until the time we got to lock. But
so I'm just kind of looking at their first half rotation yesterday, because obviously we can't take anything away from the second half.
Truth.
I would say it's a positive that you did get just the full 24 minutes from Drummond and Aldridge. Blake Griffin played, but that was behind James Johnson. Claxton didn't play. Sharp didn't play. So, like, that's a good sign, again, if you just want to, like, gamble on one of the centers.
Yeah. I think, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Who would you be more likely to gamble on?
Aldridge.
Figured as much, given our conversation from earlier.
Yeah.
Red Skittles brings up a good point. Drummond got a little dinged up yesterday. On the off chance he sits, I assume we're going, I don't want to say full bore at Aldridge, because they could just as easily slot in one of the other 9 centers to play this entire role, but I assume we start to like Aldridge a bit there.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, like, if Aldridge started at center, it just kind of turns into, like, everybody's playing Gafford and Aldridge together.
Yeah, that's true. Then we go to Toronto. Clearly still no OG Anunoby. We do not know the status of Fred VanVleet for today off the back-to-back. He's Fred VanVleet. He could very easily play today, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think it's pretty easy to say this. You're playing Pascal Siakam quite a bit today, I think. Either site. Same for Scotty Barnes. Same for Gary Trent. If VanVleet is in, I think you should play him. He's 7,500 on FanDuel. That price is stupid. If VanVleet happens to be out, you're just going to play a bunch of Malachi Flynn today. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Figured as much.
Yeah, that's how I see it. If VanVleet is in, like, we know what the rotation looks like. It's or what you would expect it to look like, at least. It's the one we've been getting for the last few games prior to yesterday, where you get around 20 minutes for Young, Boucher. Achua plays 22-ish. Birch plays like 16. Siakam, VanVleet look good. Trent, Barnes look fine. If VanVleet's out, usage bump for Trent, assist bump for Siakam, playing time bump for Flynn. It is worth noting that we got a weird rotation yesterday too. Like, Boucher only played 12 minutes. Young only played 14 minutes. I don't really know what to make of that.
Is that foul trouble for Boucher, I think?
I mean, he had 5 fouls, yeah, but he only played like 8 minutes in the first half, which I guess still could have been fouls.
I mean, he picked up his third, a minute into the second quarter. They took him out, and then, the game was basically over from that point forward. So,
yeah, that's true.
But I mean, either way, like, he still only played 9 minutes or whatever. Even if you give him 2 or 3 more minutes in that second quarter rotation and then duplicate it, still only the normal, like, 22.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so my expectation for now,
he's 3,800 on FanDuel today with power forward center.
Yeah, my expectation for now is that you're getting around 20 minutes from Boucher one way or the other.
Yep. We're on the same page. What do you do with Achua, Young, Birch? I mean, it seems like it's pretty easy to just ignore Kem Birch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you can pretty much ignore Birch. Achua now has picked up pretty substantial minutes 2 games in a row. The issue is that on DraftKings, at least, he's only center eligible at 4K. If you give him like 22 to 24 minutes, he's going to look okay, but he's still not going to get ahead of Daniel Gafford. He's not going to get ahead of like Aldridge if you're giving Aldridge the same number of minutes. So it basically just becomes like a tournament flyer type play. Young, I assume, is playing like 18 to 20 minutes at 3,700. He hasn't been particularly productive with Toronto, but I don't want to read into that too much either, since we do have a pretty long track record of Thaddeus Young being a good fantasy option.
Yeah.
Basically, though, you can't be too confident in any of those guys, but there is at least a path to success for Young, Achua, Boucher.
Will Flynn be the most popular player on this slate if VanVleet's out?
I would hope so. I mean,
yeah.
I would hope he's not, but probably should be.
He will be to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with him yesterday. I gave him 24 minutes or 26 minutes or something like that. Got to some of him. Obviously, wish I'd gotten to more. The rotations yesterday were extremely favorable for Flynn, so I'd feel pretty comfortable going heavier on him if VanVleet's out.
Yeah, I wasn't super comfortable at all trying to figure out what they were going to do. They could have just went bigger They could have went to more Banton.
Right.
I mean,
The fact that Banton wasn't in the first half rotation looks really good for Malachi Flynn.
Right. So I assume it's Banton today.
Yeah, probably.
Just to ruin our lives.
That's
Anything else for Toronto? I mean, is Siakam the best play here, though? Like, ignoring the Flynn value if he's the starter at 3,100. Like, he looks really good at 8,900 with no Van Vliet.
Okay. I think he's the guy if Van Vliet's in. I mean, obviously he looks better if Van Vliet is out, but like if Van Vliet's in, I think Siakam's the top play on Toronto.
All right, I agree. Well, that's first half done. Hit the mark too, 10:31. I'll take it given how ridiculous everything got. So let's talk a little bit about No House Advantage, the presenting sponsor of this show. If you use the promo code Awesemo, you can get yourself $25 on your first deposit. They have mass entry capabilities. You're not worried about like taking on the house, so to speak. You're ranking player props on a confidence interval. So you give 10 points to your favorite, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. You're working your way down the line after that. And there's going to be a couple spots that you'll be able to attack. We can look at certain situations like, I don't know, the Toronto game. Fred VanVleet is a part of this. Guys like Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent, certainly going to look a little bit better if VanVleet ends up getting ruled out in this one. I'm going to hit you with one or two of these. 13.5 real points on Derek White seems a little high.
Yeah, it does if he's only going to play 22 minutes or something.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that one.
Like if I give him 24, 25 minutes, it's still an under.
Oh, this one feels like an over. Let me check it quick on mine. Oh, yeah. How do you feel about over under 11.5 points for Danilo Gallinari?
Over.
Yeah, same. Gafford's at 10.5 points, 6.5 rebounds.
That's what I have him at.
Yeah. Not too much I can say on that one. Kelly Olynyk is at 14.5 points.
Under. If Bagley's in, under.
Yeah, absolutely. Like easy under too. That'll be one of the better ones. But we have No House Advantage, optimal lineups and projections already on the website. So make sure you're going to awesemo.com to check that out. Let's go to game number 4. The LA Clippers, 7-point favorites in Houston, 229 total. Reggie Jackson, 35% owned on FanDuel, where he's just $7K. He's 18% owned on DraftKings, where he's $8,200. Marcus Morris, also just shy of 20% ownership. And then you just cast this really wide net of the rest of the Clippers. So are we on the same page here? It's Reggie Jackson. It's Marcus Morris. It's Reggie Jackson 1. It's Marcus Morris 2. And then I'm very nervous about the rest of it.
I'll throw Zubats in there. I don't really know why he's only 7%. Well, I guess I do. It's because I've said I liked every center so far.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to get him too at 6,100, but there's a lot out there at center.
Yeah. 33 minutes last game. Good to see in the same matchup.
So it'll be 18 today.
Probably. Yep.
I mean, his minutes are. What do you project him for? You just kind of like hope that it's 24.
I usually give him either like 26 or 28.
Okay. Wow. So you get let down a lot.
He's been playing. His playing time, I think, has been a bit more consistent recently outside of like blowouts and stuff.
19, 14, 26, 33, 23, 31, 23, 18, 34. That dude is a yo-yo. I'm sure there's blowouts in there. So, I'm exaggerating a bit. But yeah, I just hate this Clippers team in general.
Yeah, so do I. But yeah, I mean, like in the recent games, 34 minutes, 18 where he had 4 fouls. I don't have that game in front of me. I assume he was in foul trouble. I don't know, though. 23 in a blowout, 31, 23 in a 15-point game. Don't know when or how that one went. 33, 26. And then you're getting back to like the beginning of February where Ibaka was probably still there.
God, this couch washing dude is loud as shit downstairs. How is Reggie Jackson still 7K on FanDuel? I
have no idea.
Like, I think we've established now that he's playing massive minutes.
And shooting a lot. I mean, he's close to a 30% usage rate.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But you don't get a matchup much better than this. So I want to take some shots on the extra Clippers guys because facing Houston is as good as it gets.
Yeah. The pricing is, or at least on DraftKings, the pricing is pretty sharp here.
Yeah.
Like last game, it was kind of, well, I'm going to play a lot of the Clippers and just rotate through them. Now it's more like I'm still going to get to the Clippers because it's a really good spot, but they're not just like showing up as great values across the board.
Well, you know who's not showing up as great values across the board?
The Clippers, because
most of the Houston Rockets. Christian Wood is 10% owned on DK. Next closest guy on DraftKings is Jayshawn Tate at 5%. Now, I think Jalen Green and potentially Kevin Porter are a little bit underrepresented here. Porter is questionable for this one, as is Garrison Matthews. Christian Wood, 27% ownership projected on FanDuel, where he's 7,200. That I like a lot. I guess the first piece is, do you like anybody in this one if Porter and Matthews are playing?
Okay, so not that I dislike Christian Wood, but how is he getting 10% ownership when like all of these other centers I've mentioned are at like 5%?
I have no idea.
If that holds, then it's just a spot where I probably end up under the field on Wood and getting more of the other guys.
I think that's right.
Not to discourage anyone from going to Christian Wood. Like he's probably going to play 32, 33 minutes and he looks fine. If Porter is out, he looks a little bit better. But I do think one distinction to be made, and I think it's important to mention because I almost made the mistake last game. You can't just say Christian Wood's done X this year without Kevin Porter on the floor because you didn't have Dennis Schroeder filling those minutes in for most of the season.
Yeah, you basically don't need to take Porter off.
They're like the same guy in terms of rates.
Yeah. So
I think last game I might have actually just projected Dennis Schroeder with Kevin Porter Jr.'s rates. And
I would.
Yeah.
I think that's completely normal. What do we do with this team if Porter and Matthews are out? Because I'm assuming, for one, we're going to some Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, you play Dennis Schroeder. Played almost 38 minutes last game. That is not unusual when he starts. Even if you project him for like 34, 35, you're talking about just a low to mid 20s usage guy, assist percentage, upper 20s, and a good fantasy producer.
What does Matthews being out open up? Nothing.
Minutes for guys that I probably don't really want to play anyway.
Josh Christopher.
Yeah, Josh Christopher, Kenyon Martin Jr.
Who?
KJ Martin.
Who?
KJ Martin Jr.
I think there's one or two more too. That's the worst part. Unbelievable. What do we want to do with the rest of these guys? Like, how do you feel about Jalen Green, who's real bad?
Yeah, he is. I mean, the minutes were there last game. I would, if Kevin Porter Jr. is out, I'd feel a little bit better about Green's minutes. I still wouldn't feel very good about what he's going to do with them.
That seems safe. Big bump to like Eric Gordon's 3,900 on FanDuel. If Matthews ends up out, if Porter ends up out, I'm going to like Gordon quite a bit there on FanDuel, just as like a, sub 4K punt. Another guy that's been dreadful.
Yeah, no issues.
0.57 FanDuel points per minute the last 30 days.
Yeah, it hasn't been good.
I don't think this Houston team looks all that great. And even if Porter and Matthews end up out, it's not like I think they look exceptional.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm not particularly interested in this team. If Porter is out, then I really like Schroeder. Yeah. And it doesn't really change a whole lot of anything else for me.
All right. I don't have anything else here that I want to touch on. Keep your eye on the news. Watch the deeper dive. Watch Live Before Lock. That's going to be the most important stuff that you guys can do for this one. We go to Golden State. 1-point dogs in Minnesota, 231 total. We've got no Klay Thompson in this one. He's out with an illness. Clearly still the same guys that are normally out for this team are out, although we're getting dangerously close to someone like Wiseman making his return. But we have no Draymond. We have no Iggy. Nemanja Bjelica's got the Q tag. We saw Moses Moody start this last time out over Jordan Poole. Poole's minutes down a little bit as of late. How are you managing this Golden State team? Curry, Wiggins, Looney, the guys in the double digits in ownership. I think there's some shots to be taken.
Yeah, I agree. Curry's per minute production has actually been the same in games with and without Klay, but his usage rate jumps like 4 points in the games where Klay is out. So at the very least, I think, there's a little bit higher ceiling for Curry. Obviously, he doesn't have to compete with guys like Moody in the same way he has to compete with Klay Thompson to get shots up. He's appropriately priced though at 10-8, but do have some interest there. Wiggins and Looney, I think both make sense. If Moody starts again, I think it's pretty tough to get the pool. I wasn't really sure what to do with him last game coming off the bench, but then he still only played like 19 minutes. So you got like actual run for Moody. It wasn't a spot start where, Poole closed the game or anything like that. Doesn't mean it has to be the case again, but certainly doesn't make me feel very good about going to Poole.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening here. My assumption is that they just want him on the second unit, and he's the one guy who they want to like suppress because he's potentially not going to be on the team next year. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like him playing with the second unit was fine, but I fully expected him to be closing the halves.
Yeah, same. I don't get it at all. 19 minutes this last time out. Hasn't played 30 minutes in ages. Klay missed this most recent one. He still didn't get the time. The last time that Klay was out, he got the 32 minutes, but it looks like it's going to be some sort of new change.
Yeah. Gary Payton Jr., assuming he stays, or Gary Payton II, whatever. Assuming he stays in the starting lineup, I do think he's a decent value at 4,200. We saw him not get in foul trouble last game and get 26 minutes. He's close to a point per minute guy. So, again, I think we've already touched on enough value on this slate where like, you have Gafford, you potentially have Flynn. Guys like that are on a different level than Payton. But if, for example, Van Vliet is in and, Drummond is in, so you're not getting like, Aldridge looking better, stuff like that. Payton could actually end up looking like a pretty useful value, I think.
What's the level of Jordan Poole's ownership where you would just like to take the shot and hope he does get his normal minutes?
Like 5.
Okay. Brian, I will basically bet anything that Jordan Poole is not signing an $80 million deal for Golden State, or they're going to pay $400 million in luxury tax payments next year, because I'm pretty confident Curry and Klay and Draymond aren't going anywhere. So if you think that's the case, James Wiseman needs to get shipped out along with Kuminga and something else. They can't afford to pay Jordan Poole. I'd be shocked. A
little bit of a bump for Wiggins here too without Klay.
Yeah, he's 25% owned on FanDuel today. 5,500 for Wiggins on FanDuel.
That's a pretty crazy price point.
Yeah. I have him as the best play on Golden State today, even slightly better than Curry, just because, it doesn't take a lot at 5,500 to become essential, and he's going to be out there just as much as anybody else. Anything else for Golden State?
Nope.
Minnesota on the back-to-back. And we just kind of have to assume that this is just going to look like it did yesterday, barring any additional news. Towns, Russell, Edwards, Beverly, Vanderbilt. These are the guys that you could pretty easily get to. McDaniels to a degree. Anthony Edwards has been very, very bad as of late. What are you doing with Minnesota? Who is your favorite play here? And I guess tell me why it's D'Angelo Russell.
I think it's probably Edwards.
Okay.
But
it had been Russell for so long.
Yeah, it's really close between Russell and Edwards. Edwards is, again, cheaper than Russell. That's normally kind of how I decided. Is one of them's normally a few $100 cheaper. Edwards has guard forward eligibility too, which is nice. I just have no reason to not keep going back to him. He hasn't shot well recently, but it happens. Like, the minutes are still there typically in competitive games. Usage is still in the mid-20s. I don't really have any reason to stop playing him, especially because like Greg and I talked about it on the deeper dive yesterday. It would be one thing if like his price were dropping and as a result his ownership were skyrocketing, but his price is dropping and you're still getting like 10% ownership on him. So I don't have any issue just going to him over and over and losing my money repeatedly.
So Team AP, I forgot, I didn't even mention the fact that Wiggins makes a shit ton of money next year too. If you like that $7,400 price tag on DraftKings, can I interest you in $6,600 on FanDuel for Edwards?
Yeah.
22% owned, fully warranted. Let's talk about the rest of these guys. Do you get to Towns today?
It's tough.
I feel like I don't roster Karl Towns at all, ever.
It's so difficult because he's like, it's not that he is priced incorrectly. He fully deserves a $10,000 price tag, give or take a couple $100. The problem is that he's a center, so he has to compete with all of the cheaper center options that look good. But then there's also always like a million guard options in this price range that look better. So it just becomes really, really difficult. And I don't think that's any different today.
And then he's sometimes trapped on slates where Jokic is always going to look like a better play. Embiid is going to look like a better play. Giannis having center eligibility becomes a complicating factor. Like there are significantly better options above him. He's just in like no man's land on a day-to-day basis.
He's the least productive 10K plus center, I think.
I feel like there's no, like his standard deviation is 0. Like he just kind of averages like 1.35 fantasy points per minute, and that's just what he gets.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, he doesn't, it's not any sort of knock on him. It's just that like like you said, whenever Jokic, Embiid, Giannis are on the slate, even though they're $2,000 more expensive, they look better at their price than he does at 10K. Yeah. Guys like John Morant, Trae Young, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when Giddey is out, DeJounte Murray, they all look better in this price range whenever they're on the slate. And then you get, any given slate. Today it happens to be Gafford, potentially Aldridge, Capella, Zubats, just a million centers that cost half as much or, less.
Feels weird. You know how, like, I don't know, FanDuel and DraftKings, I think, do like a year-end review of like guy you rostered the most and whatever. I'd love to know if he's like the highest priced guy on average that I've rostered the least, because I think that he has to be.
Yeah, most likely.
I can't think of anybody else that's consistently highly priced that I don't get to at all.
Yeah, they would have to like just clearly underprice him relative to his production to like make you roster him. Like if you make Karl Anthony Towns like 9K every day, the conversation then at least is like, well, he's clearly underpriced, but also there's a bunch of other centers to play. At 10K, it's just like, yeah, he's priced where he should be, and that's kind of just it. Like
I can't picture a chalk Towns day this season.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And he's good. He's like 1.4 FanDuel points per minute. He's really good.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. You ready to close this out? Late night hammer. This one pisses me off. I thought we were going to get a day that looked just like yesterday where we were done by 8:00. No, we're going to put the 2-hour wait on Luka and the Mavs against whatever the hell is left of the Los Angeles Lakers. The Mavs are 5-point favorites in LA. And now we could talk about the very clear to me best play of the day. That is Luka Doncic. 10-8 on FanDuel. He's 50% owned already. I don't even really disagree with it. 12K on DraftKings, 34% owned. He's the clear top option for today, correct?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good matchup against the Lakers. Playing out of his mind recently. Always has been good, but playing even better. Usage rate is up. Assist percentage is up. Over the last month or so. I have nothing bad to say about Luka.
Giannis and Embiid, 1.84, 1.82 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days. All of these guys that I'm going to name are above 300 minutes. Jokic, 1.69. Luka Doncic, 4th in the league, 1.64 fantasy points per minute on FanDuel in 409 minutes. So not only that, he's playing a ton too. Just play him.
Yep.
And then we get into the tricky stuff. Jalen Brunson is 5,800 on FanDuel, 6,500 on DraftKings. He is getting the most ownership out of anybody else, and he has been awful as of late. How are you reading into Jalen Brunson now?
I'm still interested just because the price tag is reasonable at 6,500. He's still playing a lot of minutes. Like you should probably get 32 to 35, kind of depending on how he's playing. Not a priority for me, but I do still think that there's some upside there.
Yeah,
especially in non-Luka lineups. Okay. Like it's a good spot for Dallas in games where Luka doesn't. Like if you don't have Luka in your lineup, obviously you don't need him to like have a bad game necessarily. But you're hoping he doesn't torch the Lakers. In a game where Luka is just like average, there's obviously a greater chance that Brunson has a good game.
Are you willing to go to Finney-Smith or Bullock? Obviously, two pretty poor per minute guys, but should be seeing 32 minutes or more.
Yeah, I mean, in 150 lineups, they'll probably land in a few, but
yeah, 5 to 10 percenters on a 6-gamer.
Yeah, nothing I'm excited about there.
Okay, and then are you taking a shot on Dinwiddie? Seems like the price is just a little too high, although the minutes are starting to creep up.
Yeah, he did get 31 minutes last game, which is nice. The price tag still isn't great. I'm looking now to see what he's done since joining Dallas in terms of rates. I know through the first couple of games it was awful. Now he's at 18.7% usage, 18.9% assist percentage, 0.9 DraftKings points per minute in 4 games, trending in the right direction, but still just really difficult to be confident in, I think.
Yeah, Dallas is a pretty easy team to talk about at this point.
Yeah, I think you kind of you play Luka, and then Brunson is second, and then Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith, Bullock, Powell, Kleba, all just sort of are guys that if you're playing 150 lineups, you get a little bit of. If you're playing like 3 lineups, you probably just don't touch.
By the way, just because I saw it as a tweet, we didn't talk about it at all. That jaw dunk yesterday. Whew.
Yeah. Like 5 minutes after the Edwards dunk, which was also insane.
Yeah. It's a fun time. Like the NBA is perfectly made for Instagram. Yeah. You can just, it's like the ESPN top 10s, but you don't have to hope that you catch it in the time that you're eating your cereal in the morning like you did when we were a kid. Alrighty. Let's close it out with the Los Angeles Lakers, who are truly terrible. LeBron is 11K on FanDuel, 11-2 on DraftKings. I just don't know how you get to LeBron before you get to Luka if you needed to pick between the two. Clearly he's LeBron. Clearly he looks good. I don't have too much to add on Bron. Do you have anything you want to say on LeBron James?
No, I mean, he's obviously better without Anthony Davis from a fantasy standpoint. Averages around 1.5 to 1.6 DraftKings points per minute in the games that he's out. So he looks good. But I agree that Luka is just kind of on another level.
Do you have any idea what Russell Westbrook's price is on FanDuel today?
I saw a tweet about him being extremely cheap, but no, I don't know what it is.
Do you want to take a guess?
6K?
6,600. He's the highest owned guy on the Lakers on either FanDuel or DraftKings.
Is that underpriced?
He's 0.96 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days.
He's been better in the games without Davis, but again, it's hard to like pinpoint how much of this is like him just being absolute garbage recently, like even compared to what he was earlier this year.
It's tricky, man. I don't know what to do. Like I give him the non-Davis rate, so 28% usage, 30-something% usage rate. I got him at 1.12 fantasy points per minute, and at 6,600, I think you got to be playing him. To me, he's a good play, but it feels disgusting. 8,300 on DraftKings makes it a lot easier to just not care all that much.
Yeah. He's at 1.17 DraftKings points per minute in the games that he's played without Davis and with LeBron. If you look just over the last 2 months without Anthony Davis on the floor, Westbrook is at 1.08 DraftKings points per minute. If you move that to the last month, he's at 0.91 DraftKings points per minute, but has a 31% usage rate.
Yeah. Even at 0.91, like 6,600 is a price tag where you play him.
Yeah, and probably getting 33, 34 minutes.
Right. It's gross. It's so gross. What a fall from grace, even though I think he fell 12 months ago plus and no one listened.
I mean, like last year, at least he was productive. Like we've talked about this. Like I thought it was a horrible fit for the Lakers. I was pretty pissed when he went there just because I became a fan when he was in Washington and I knew this wasn't going to work and he was going to get blamed heavily and just wasn't happy about it. But like at least I think he was a useful piece on Washington given what they had, what they were, what they needed. Like he's just nothing now. It's right. Crazy.
It's kind of nuts. We got to talk about the biggest piece here. How are you handling $4,300 Dwight Howard today?
Playing him.
Okay. Where does he rank in your list of centers for today? That is quite long.
Yeah. Highly. Like I think if Gafford starts, Howard's probably comparable to Gafford because I think Howard probably plays more minutes. Like he played 22 last game, but that was the blowout against the Pels. It's a good matchup against Dallas. They certainly could go small to close here. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty close between Howard and Gafford. Like if Howard gets 24 minutes, he's going to look good. But if he happens to get 28 or something, it's one of the best plays on the slate.
I gave him 23 for today. Center position is pretty tough. Yeah, not that that's not like the norm as of late, but like who's a better play, Dwight Howard or Thad Young?
Dwight Howard.
Interesting. Okay. I assume you have Dwight over like Achua.
Yeah.
What about Isaiah Stewart?
Dwight's actually not projecting as well for me as I thought he was going to.
He's not. That's why I'm asking you these questions. I'm naming a bunch of guys that rank higher than him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he doesn't look better for me.
I don't know. I mean, like, if he's going to get the ownership, to me, it's just like, all right, well, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that Dwight Howard isn't that guy today, which is very easy to happen. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be DeAndre Jordan, but
yeah.
Who's the best play on the Lakers that isn't LeBron James on DraftKings? Is it Dwight?
Dwight Howard.
Okay. All righty. Well, anything else here? Anything else we need to touch on for this slate? You've got injury report video, GPP video, deeper dive coming up later today.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm still just trying to figure out, like, I mean, Howard's rates have taken a bit of a hit when he starts. I guess that's not super surprising.
Yeah, oddly enough, I don't think that Russ and LeBron are trying to ISO out Dwight Howard when he's out there with them. Michael Roundtree says, who else can they play at center? Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Trevor Ariza, Stanley Johnson. I'm sure I'm missing somebody else. Yeah, everybody else, basically. That's all I got. Thank you very much to No House Advantage for being the sponsor of this show. Make sure you're watching all of the content that we have for the rest of the day. That'll do it. Hit that like button if you haven't done it already. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Make sure you're watching Locks Before Lock, Deeper Dive, and Live Before Lock, because if you're playing tonight and you're not watching those shows, you're not winning anything. I promise you. Good luck tonight, everybody.